Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking with Sean Wang, who is mostly known as Swix, and we're going to discuss... Sean, could you please introduce yourself first?
Hey everyone, I'm Sean. I am also known as Swix. I am head of developer experience at temporal.io, but I'm also on Twitter a lot and a general content creator in my personal capacity, so I'm here to talk about that.
I mostly know about Sean by reading his article, Learning in Public, which is great, and also other essays. You probably know him as well if you read this article. It's about literally learning in public, actually showing your progress, sharing your progress, putting out the material, and learning by doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's something that when I reflect on my own career, every time I've done it, it's really been the determinant of the majority of my success. So that's when I went to do a speech for my boot camp. That was the title of my speech. I wrote it down in like one afternoon, and then I tweeted it, and it just went viral. So I was like, okay, this is something that people want to hear about. And 3 years later, I'm still doing it. It's still amazing, and I want to spread the word.
Sean has some great essays, so for sure Sean knows how to make some great content, but I would like to give some backstory to this call. Let me share my screen. I want to show the tweet and what will be the matter of today's discussion. Share the screen.
It's always scary. It's always scary when people show you your own tweet. You're like, what am I gonna say?
Yeah, so there is this thing in Twitter, which I understand totally, and I also did it. This is why we're doing the stream today. So their power is growing, the singularity approaches. And then a bunch of tweet threads with 5 websites or whatever amount of websites that will save some amount of time per week or per day or per something. You can see I'm here as well. One funny thing, though, is that I have only one like and retweet, but whatever. Usually they get a lot of engagement, and this is why people do it. Because
you didn't save enough hours. That's the problem.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem. So, as I understand, you think that this is a wrong approach to create content, right? And first, I would like to discuss what is wrong with this thing.
Wrong is a strong word. I'm making fun, and it's okay to make fun. It's okay to make fun of things. That's all. So, what that tweet was doing was that what if you took them seriously, right? Like, because every tweet was like, this tweet will save you 2 hours per week, and then the next tweet was like, this tweet will save you 4 hours, and the next tweet will save you 5, and the next tweet will save you 10. So I was like, what if you just add it all up? Will you just not need to work anymore?
Yeah, eventually. Yeah. This is why in this tweet where I posted about this stream, I said 8 hours a day straight ahead, so you can skip the whole workday and be free.
Yeah, so it's obviously making fun of the exaggeration, and I mean, I get why people do it. So yeah, that's as far as I go. I don't call it out as like anything evil. I just think that it's obviously not very genuine, because nobody really thinks that you're saving any amount of hours. So you're obviously lying to your own people just to get some clout. And it's also, I think that there's a BuzzFeedification of Twitter, where people are trying to turn their threads into listicles. Basically, they'll promise something absurd at the top, and then they'll list 5 or 7 or 10 projects, most of which they just saw when Googling around just before tweeting, that they don't actually use, right? I see a lot of this as well on Grifter Twitter, with like, here are the top 7 JavaScript projects ranked by number of GitHub stars. Well, thank you very much. I didn't know that. And it's very clear that there's just no effort put into it, but people just like it anyway.
Yeah, it's the path of the least resistance. And actually, with my tweet, I was actually even less genuine. I didn't even care about the actual content. What I wanted to see does this technique work? So it was like two layers of uningenuity, I guess.
It's fine. Yeah, I mean, monkey see, monkey do. We're all Twitter is partially a game, and you're all trying to figure out what you're playing for. It turns out that people have different rules, and I'm trying to inspire people to have a higher level of quality or purpose for themselves than likes, because I think that is the lowest common denominator, and that's not something I want to see in my life. I think I wasted enough of my own life on that. It's fine if you want to do it. It's an open platform. Do whatever you want to do on your own account. I'm not telling you what to do on your own account.
Yeah, totally.
But I also have the right to make fun of.
Yeah, I even wrote in my next tweet that I actually got some bitter taste after doing it. Just like when using Tinder, I got into some mood that I didn't really like when I was sort of dehumanizing people who I consider just as followers instead of like trying to make genuine connection. But I totally understand why I would continue doing it, just because it's the path of the least resistance, and you eventually might get very good responses on that. So this, I would say, the platform itself encourages people to continue pushing out this sort of content. It's easy to make, and then you get likes and retweets.
Encourage is a strong word. You have agency in your own choices, and the kind of people that you want that connect with you based on those kinds of tweets are very low quality people, just quite frankly, in my opinion. There's no point engaging with those people. So yeah, I mean, there are other games to play on Twitter, which is, for example, networking with high value people. And I'm not saying like, of course, everyone is valuable, and every person has value. There are just some people who don't value quality, and they just respond to very like. Okay, it's like the people who click on like the BuzzFeed articles, right? And like here's the 7 secrets to losing weight. You won't believe number 5. That kind of.
So basically, by taking a shortcut. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No worries. It is a shortcut. It is very bottom tier content, and there are a lot of people who respond to that. In fact, probably the majority of the population. But you're saying that because Twitter gives you a lot of likes, Twitter is encouraging you to do it. I push back on that. I push back on that because Twitter's not doing anything. Is all these people responding to what you're doing, and you don't have to respond to it. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to sink to that level. You can stand for something better that you can look back on in 5, 10, 20 years and say like, I'm proud of that.
That sounds awesome.
Hopefully I'm trying to push people towards that, because all these things, all these likes, it doesn't fucking matter.
I would like not to push back, but a little bit clarify my previous statement about Twitter actually encouraging you to do this. First of all, a lot of people talk right now, a lot of articles exist about how growing on Twitter might help you with your career, might just directly help you to earn money, might help you to launch products, and so on. So people come to Twitter. A lot of people come nowadays to Twitter not to communicate, but just to earn money eventually at some point in time. And then when you go there, and first things you see, you follow a bunch of topics. That's what the app encourages you to do. It's the first thing that they ask. Follow some topics. And then it starts showing you the materials on those topics. And I, for example, followed web development, open source, computer science, and a bunch more related to programming. And what I saw then was mostly this sort of tweets, not only threads, but also repetitions of the same question, like, are you a programmer or a developer? And things like that, or sort of semi-jokes that are basically repeated over and over and over again. And they're promoted by those topics. So I see your point. I don't necessarily agree that the platform doesn't encourage it. For instance, inside Twitter, there is right now Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces. And at this moment, at least, while Clubhouse already became, at least in Russia, an SMM platform where people basically communicate to only promote themselves. So majority of interactions there are about growth into the Clubhouse. It's like meta social network where people connect for the sake of connection to gain something out of it, and growing for the sake of growing. In Twitter Spaces, it didn't happen yet. At least I didn't see it. And there, while you're talking directly to other humans, it all feels much more genuine. And I don't see how could you make this kind of discussions even. Like, okay, I'm going to discuss top 10 articles, whatnot. You can't even post links there. So you see my point that platform and the medium that they're using actually matters. And that
I agree that by pushing the topics and making the topics so low quality, they are pushing that onto you and encouraging that. So yeah, I agree on that.
Cool. What could be the right counteraction for this, so that when people join Twitter, they see good content? Because eventually, like at some point, you get some traction, and you get, like on YouTube, I'm posting videos. First 1,000 followers was very hard to get. I think it took me more than 1 year or something. Then second 1,000 was easier, and then now I'm getting 1,000 a month. I guess same goes for the Twitter. How to start good, because making materials that no one watches or reads is not fun. What would you recommend to people who, okay, I want to make genuinely good quality content, and we can talk about what is good quality content a bit later. But now, if I'm starting out, how do I make it fun for myself? I mean, get some engagement in this, so people actually react, communicate, discuss. What is the good way to get it?
Yeah, I have a blog post about this that I call "Pick Up What You Put Down," and so I'm trying to offer an alternative where you don't evaluate the quality of your work by the numbers that you engage, and you should evaluate the quality of your work by how well it starts a conversation with people that you respect on topics that you're very keen on. So here's the difference, right? I'm trying to learn machine learning, and this is an example. I'm not doing machine learning. This is an example. But if Andrej Karpathy, who's the head of machine learning at Uber, puts out a new paper or a new library, I can go, write a blog post about that, or contribute to the library, or make a demo with the library and send it back to him. He has a higher chance of reviewing that because it directly responds to something that he did. Right? There's a social contract in creators where you're encouraged to respond, and if you become a frequent collaborator with him, you might start to get to work with him. You might become a peer. You might learn a lot more from him. And to me, one of those relationships with industry experts, where you start having a very sustainable, long-term relationship with the people in the industry, that is much more valuable than 10,000 faceless names who you will never see, and who don't really care about you. And the reason you do this is because that's how you avoid the content grind, right? I think you may have heard about this on YouTube as well, but it's the same in a lot of other platforms.
Not really. I don't know what is this term. Yeah, could you please clarify?
Yeah, because the algorithm rewards consistent output. That one I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And if you couple that together with needing to boost the numbers on every single piece that you write, then you start doing very beginner posts, like how to get into development, how to, make six figures, in only 6 months of study, stuff like that. And that is something that is fun. It's going to get a lot of numbers because it's very beginner focused, and there are always more beginners than there are experts. But it's not very fulfilling, and it's not very genuine after a while, right? Like, you can start off doing it for sure, but everybody runs out of steam because that's not the level that you're at anymore. You're always talking down to people, not in a sense of like you don't think they're beneath you, just in a sense of expertise, right? Like you're always like not pushing your comfort zone is what I'm thinking about, and you're not building industry relationships that are two-way, that are sustainable, that are helping you grow professionally as well. You're just sort of you're presenting yourself as an expert, and then you're like, here's the content that YouTube seems to want me to create. I have no choice in the matter. You do. So please, try to push yourself a little bit harder. Try to make interesting content that engages with relevant industry topics, and build a network rather than an audience. Does that make sense? The difference?
Yeah, I see now. So instead of targeting people with very small expertise in the topic and trying to please the beginners, your advice is to focus on people who you personally aspire, who get inspired with.
Yeah.
and make content that would allow to connect with them and have interesting discussions, right?
And I'm not, and this is not about hero worship, right? There's a lot of celebrity culture, especially in tech, and some of that is justified because some of these people have really accomplished a lot in their lives. But this is also not about hero worship. So people who are near you, people who are like just a bit above you, just a bit to the side of you, you can collaborate with them. And you're learning together and growing together, and that's a genuine connection in your friends, and you'll see each other, 5-10 years down the line. If you've grown together into these great industry legends, isn't that much better than being like, I don't know, a million subscriber YouTube, where you're just constantly churning out tutorials? That's partially the trap that Siraj Raval. Have you heard of it?
It's the venture investor, right?
No. That's Naval Ravikant. Siraj Raval.
Okay.
Siraj Raval was a YouTuber who had a machine learning YouTube, and he was genuinely good for a while, but he committed to doing 2 videos a week, every single week for like 3 years.
I know I know who you're talking about. Yeah, with the gray stripe of hair.
Gray stripe of hair, very smooth talker, very high quality and high energy videos. The problem was that he was spending most of his time making videos talking down to people who are beginners and spending zero time actually advancing his own skills. So eventually he ran out of things to do. So he started copying other people's work and presenting it as his own. And literally people have caught him just changing, like copy paste of plagiarizing, and it's just a really, really bad look. And then he started selling courses. He said it's like a limited sale of like 200 seats, and then it turns out he sold 6 courses simultaneously of those 200 or something like that. And then of course people caught him because he cannot keep that up forever, and he apologizes and said the YouTube algorithm made him do it. Did it, or did he just choose?
All right, I see your point, but removing your own responsibility and your own agency,
you have a choice, man. You have a choice. And I'm not saying like, do whatever makes you happy. I don't think he was very happy. He was just captivated by numbers, and I'm sorry, it got to him, but like that's not the way I want to live my life, and I want to articulate another path for other people to follow, because it's it can seem like it's a good deal, but if you want Twitter followers, go and buy them. They're a bunch of bots. The New York Times is
no, I don't necessarily agree with the whole stance on this. Like when you're good at teaching, let's say even basic topics, and you're just explaining them really well so that beginners grasp them well, and then you do courses, I think it is still a nice lifestyle. If you're like, there are some Udemy teachers who make a good amount of money, they can sustain themselves, and live a very decent life just by teaching people very, very basic beginner stuff. Would I personally go through their courses? Not all of them. I saw a lot of people there who didn't ever have real production experience. Is it necessarily a bad course? I reviewed a bunch of them. No, actually, not really. If you're just starting out, they might be a really good overview of the technology and just get you going initially. So there are other people, like I like the Front-End Masters platform, where they sell what is it? It's basically workshops recorded. They have really high quality ones with people who have some industry level practice, which is better. But I think there is a niche for all of that.
Yeah, I think there are multiple successful paths in life. And I will never say that the path that I want to go is the only path that is valid for everybody. They should all listen to me. No, I'm just saying that this is the path that I follow. And here's why.
Cool. Now we can slightly pivot, and you could describe in a little bit more detail what is the path you're talking about with these genuine connections, and what should be the strategy, and what is good content. Like how you already covered it a little bit while talking about directing your writing or recordings towards people who you would like to connect with and network, and trying to get network instead of the audience. So could we talk a little bit more about that?
To me, that is the gist of it. Try to form real relationships rather than game numbers on some website. Like here's a good measure, right? Like can you is it a two-way street? Are you getting as much out of them in terms of learning as they are out of you? Another measure is, for example, like, can you work off of the platform? Can you work together off of the platform? One of the
What
ways
does
that
it mean?
hang on. One of the ways that I like to say, one of the goals that I like to talk about on Twitter is that your Twitter is at its best when you take when you meet on Twitter and then you take it off the platform. You start to move things to DMs, and then you're like, hey, let's work together on a project. Let's actually, I want to hire you, come be my coworker, or like something, whatever, right? Like the relationship blossoms into something real instead of transactional. Okay. And if I have to explain that, I don't know how to go further.
No, not for me.
Yeah. Another thing I think that happens a lot on platforms is that there are a lot of one-offs. So it's like I'll do a sprint, and then I'll like put out something amazing, and then that's it, and then I'm moving on to something else. So intro to React, intro to Vue, intro to Svelte, intro to TensorFlow, whatever. That doesn't compound over time, and I think that people should try to compound things because that will deepen your relationship and your satisfaction and your expertise, rather than spreading it out in a number of areas just because you're planting a flag, right? Because intro to whatever is always like where people start, and that's what you do when you go for numbers. Again, no hate on you if you're very good at that and that's your job, but that is not intellectually fulfilling to me. And that's all I want to say on really about that. But if you can compound and like build a whole universe of like interconnected content articles, that probably is a very good content strategy in and of itself. But it's also very fulfilling for you personally, because you're exploring the map and going deep on topics that really pique your curiosity. And people who think like you can find you and go down that path together with you. You're sort of leaving a trail behind you of like, here's where I'm going. I'm sharing my journey as I go. It's a very authentic journey, and you can follow along with me. And let's see where this ends. I think that's a lot more fun and fulfilling than intro to whatever for until the end of time.
Forever, basically.
Yeah. I have another concept which is not very open for YouTube, which is this idea of open source knowledge. That's another blog post that I've talked about. So, open source code has helped to replace a lot of closed source code. And I think open source knowledge, we can do that for sort of private learning versus public learning, right? But not just public learning, it's also collaborative learning. For YouTube is not a very collaborative place. Like, you can do, I guess, chats like this, but you're not really ever collaborating with your readers.
What about free code camp?
What about it?
Isn't it this sort of concept being on YouTube where people can contribute to this channel, or you mean something very different?
That's fine. That's okay. I mean, obviously it's a nice resource to have, and it's a really good learning platform.
But it doesn't count as open source learning.
I don't. Sure. I mean,
how would it look like? Okay, let's say open source learning on YouTube. How would it look like? I'm trying to understand.
Look, sure. Who's the guy who runs the Free Code Camp YouTube? Bill Carnes. Bill Carnes runs the Free Code Camp YouTube. They post something like 4 to 7 hour videos, every week or every day. Do you think he watches all those videos?
Oh, everything that they post? I don't know.
Absolutely not. Come on. Are you serious?
He personally might be not, but they probably have editors. Do you think they don't watch it at all?
Pretty much.
All right. Well, I just don't know.
You know why? Because I've submitted it.
And they did. And what, did you have some Easter eggs there, or how did you find out?
No, it's just like he just comments on the intro and the ending. That's it. Like the middle, he doesn't really.
Okay, I see.
Is some QC for like engagement and stuff like that. He's not learning. He's running a TV network. Okay, that's a different thing. Is that open source knowledge to you? I don't know. To me, he's just running a TV network. It happens to be a nonprofit public charity, TV network, but it's still a TV network.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. What I'm trying to say here is, for example, like what is Wikipedia? Wikipedia is the first most successful example of open source knowledge, where we used to have these printed encyclopedias where they'll hire experts and you have to buy it every single year. Like, here's the new stack of 26 books or something, and that just completely got destroyed, right? Because people just collaborated on updating the one resource on I guess encyclopedic knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And what if we could do that for anything that we're interested in, right? Hey, I'm learning React and TypeScript. Let me just throw up a GitHub repo, and there's no code in here, but there's everything that I learn about it organized in a way that makes sense to me, and people who come along and see what I'm doing and want to help. Also on that, they can be a bit behind me, they can ask questions, or they can be a bit above me, and they can contribute advice or fixes. And let's build this into a good resource that's collaborative and long-term. I think that's a fundamentally awesome thing, and that's actually what happened to me, by the way. So 2 years ago, I did React and TypeScript cheat sheets, and that's become the de facto community documentation for React and TypeScript, because people from Uber and Airbnb and Microsoft and wherever just came by and added content, and that's open source knowledge, right? It created a long-term, long-running thing. I've been taught for free by all these very high value people. And that's a wonderful way to do this. So instead of like a top-down, like, here, I'm the content creator, I will do a bunch of work, and then I'll put out the finished product at the end. And once I'm done, I'm going to move on to do some other random thing that's completely unrelated to the previous thing. There's an ongoing growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's built-in network effect, and people can see that they have a part to play as well. That's pretty cool. So when you ask me all the way back, I don't know, about like 5 or 6 minutes ago, about what forms of content I find interesting, I think that's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to ask, how would you envision open source content on YouTube or any other video platform? How would the collaboration look like? Because text is nice, it's editable. Videos, not so much, really.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't figured it out. You can let me know when you do, because YouTube is very final format. When you upload a video, that's it. Well, you can collaborate on the streams. I think Twitch channels and stuff like that. But I hate it when people, when content creators. So I used to work in developer relations and developer marketing, and people are like, "Oh, you can use YouTube or Twitch," and like, come on, like YouTube is 100 times bigger than Twitch, right? Like in terms of audience size, especially for developers. Yeah. So, sure, you can do collaborative work on your Twitch channel with like 20 people watching. It's not the same thing as YouTube.
Exactly. With open source, there comes another question about earning money. And if you don't like this question, we can skip it. But when you make materials, videos, courses, books, articles, you can just earn money with this. And then making beginner targeted materials is just more profitable because you have more people who are beginners.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And with open, I'm trying to ask a very complex question. I probably should just ask a bunch of questions instead. So let's go with the first one.
Okay, man. Hey, just lay it all out and let's have a real chat. You don't have to break it up.
Oh, all right. First of all, making content for the beginners is easier. Second is that when you make open source, and this is a very, let's say, popular problem for open source, is that open source often struggles getting funding or getting money, earning money. So what is your take on that? How would you earn money? Let's call it the ethical way of earning money, or like what is the good way to do it without this sort of putting out, I don't know what to say, cheap materials is just not necessarily true, but you know what I'm talking about.
It's a tricky topic. First of all, I applaud making anything and trying to sell it for money on the internet is very difficult, and don't let any criticism get in the way of you trying. Okay, so just go try whatever you try, and as long as it works, good for you. Okay, this is for people who have some experience and can are smart enough to do whatever and have some responsibility for their for their choices. So that's one thing I should mention. The other thing I think that your question that I don't like about the question, or that I want to push back on the question, is that you said there's like two things that are pulling in opposite directions. So one is like you want to make money, and the best way to make money is to make intro courses, and the other is you want to fund open source, right?
Another one was about your. Let's say you write a book. If you write it alone, you can just get revenue by selling it. If you make an open source, let's say book or cheat sheet or whatever, you won't be able to sell it.
I see. Sure.
So that's not the goal, and that's not.
I don't see what's the okay. Like, first of all, you don't have to monetize everything. Second of all, a lot of open source like is a means to an end, right? It's not about the code; it's about the knowledge that's encoded inside the code. And you can monetize that a bunch of different ways. Like you can use that as part of your CV for hiring, right? If the company already uses your code, they're much more likely to hire you because you're the maintainer of something that they use. That's fantastic. But then also you can sell consulting services. So my friend Tanner Lindsley made React Query and React Table and a bunch of other popular
which
React
is amazing. Library, yeah.
Yeah, and he sells consulting hours, and that's a perfectly fine way to monetize, and you can keep the open source free because code is only a part of the overall value of software.
I like this answer. It's very good. That you don't necessarily need to make direct sales with it.
Well, the slightly different answer, which I thought you're going a slightly different direction because you're saying,
okay, how did you understand it?
I definitely see a lot of people making intro tutorials and courses, and they make a lot of money from it. And then you're trying to link that to like how can I use that to fund open source? And
not really. It's just the way I've asked this question. It was really two different questions, and I got confused about them. It was two different.
I just want to make the point that teaching is its own valuable skill, and open source is a different skill that tends to be monetized in a very different way. So the kind of person who like works on Redux and is in the issues every single day is probably I know because he's a friend of mine, is not a very good self-promoter and teacher of introductory courses because they're just not at that level, and they don't enjoy that kind of work. And it is a good skill to be able to teach beginners. So these are both specializations, and they monetize in different ways.
Okay, that's a good answer. Overall, throughout the discussion, I got the point that there are things more important than money. It's more important to do things that fulfill you. It's more important to make connections that to try to gain the audience. And what else? What else did we learn today?
I also want to share this. Money is very important to me. Okay, I do respect a lot, and I think people should try to make the most out of the limited time that they have available for work. But I think that you can both be more fulfilled and make more money by going deep, okay, rather than broad and shallow. So this is not a choice between either I want money or I want happiness.
Yeah, deep work and no money, shallow work and
you can have a lot of money. You just need to be more patient. Okay, don't go for the near-term rewards of likes. Go for the long-term rewards of like, here's a productive working relationship where it spins off like job opportunities, like collaboration efforts, like whatever, and like mutual learning, stuff like that. And to me, I think that will probably open to you opportunities that most of the other people, because they're playing a completely different game, they're just playing the likes game. Those opportunities will not be open to them because they're not even caring about relationships. They're not even caring about like collaborations and learning. So, I'm simplifying things greatly. Okay. And so, take this with a lot of caveats. But I think that you can make money and you can have deep relationships at the same time.
I think a good example is Josh Camus with his CSS course. I followed his work for a long time. First saw him on React Europe, and then I was amazed by the depth and the quality of his articles and tutorials. It's just amazing. Animating React, overall working with CSS. And now, as far as I've heard, the launch of the CSS course was very successful.
Yes, $500,000.
That's very good.
Yeah, but he spent 10 years making educational tech platforms and just being extremely passionate about them and meeting basically everybody in that space, right? And then whenever you want to monetize, sure, just put out a course, people buy it because like they trust you and you're gonna have the skills to back it up, right? It's just so much easier than like trying to start out hunting for likes and like going into the content grind and doing the intro stuff and like not really having a purpose or a goal. Like Josh stands for something. He stands for I guess animation. He stands for CSS.
Good, clear UIs.
That's not yelling. There are a lot of CSS developers who like just yell at JS developers, hey, you should learn CSS, you suck at CSS. He's not like that. He's a JS developer that really understands CSS and wants to just share it with you because he thinks that it can be beneficial for you. And he just genuinely embraces that and has gone deep on it. So that's the kind of thing where there's a class of YouTube content creators or Twitter content creators that will just never get there. Never, because they're just focused on the wrong thing. And I feel sad for them. I don't judge them in a sense like they can do whatever they want. But I think that maybe they might not know that there's another way.
We have, I think, just 5 minutes left, and I want to ask a very specific question about content creation. What is the purpose of like what to post on Twitter? Because I connect easily with people in Twitter Spaces, but I have no idea what to tweet about. I do a lot of different things, but it feels like it's just tweet format is just not for me. I ended up just using it to announce my streams and such.
I see. That's fine as well. I don't really think I figured it out, and I think as long as you're working on interesting things and you're sharing cool findings, sometimes storytelling really works. Like telling a personal story or something that you just learned that like you just have to tell people. It's the kind of thing that like when I read about something and I'm like, hey, I want to tell my sister. That's the kind of thing that you can share and just write it up in an entertaining way, because people want to learn, but they also want to be entertained, right? Like Twitter is kind of like a semi-professional place. So if you can balance the bars of education and entertainment, I think you go pretty far. And also making it witty, I think is something that's pretty key. Pretty key.
Witty is what exactly?
Witty, something insightful that someone has never thought about or has never been phrased quite that way. And after you hear that, you're like, okay, shit, like that is the way to think about it. So quotes are really good. Unfortunately, that gets you into this territory of what is called fortune cookie Twitter, where some of the really high follower accounts basically have stopped sharing opinion.
I put it in the same thing as the threads with hours saved.
No, it's not the same thing.
Why not?
Because there is some genuine belief in that. When they tweet that, they're just trying to minimize. They're trying to compress their insights into the smallest amount of characters and words as possible, but they genuinely believe in it. Whereas those engagement and listicle posts are literally just listing listing projects and then writing absurd number of hours which nobody believes. So there's a difference. Anyway, okay. So yeah, I mean, look, I have a guide for I have a developer's guide to Twitter in a book that I wrote. It basically covers like a bunch of these topics. It covers like healthy Twitter versus unhealthy Twitter.
Nice.
But also, yeah, and I think my advice for people just getting started is that try to keep it professional. 90% professional, 10% personal is something that I think about a lot. Basically, because people don't know who you are. As you grow over time, people know your brand, they trust you. You can let loose a little bit. I definitely play a lot of let loose by myself, but when people don't know who you are, you can try to focus and try to connect with the people in that particular part of the Twitter audience. And particularly sometimes it's like responding with helpful links, sharing or riffing off of somebody else's work. Like sometimes people publish a code pen, you can fork that code pen and then build something else with it, and that would be really cool. And they'll share your work as well. And it's a long game. I've been doing this I've been serious about Twitter for about 3 years. And it's definitely helped me. But the people that I don't remember, like I don't my growth doesn't scale with my follower count. My growth scales with the number of high quality people that in my industry that I really want to connect to. And sometimes they can be industry legends, or sometimes they can be people new to Twitter, but who already have really good skills that I want to learn from, and I work with them already. So try to use it as a guide, but don't be ruled by your life. Don't rule your life by likes, basically.
Yeah, for me, the great example was Ryan Carnieto, with whom we made a stream about Solid and what is the difference between Solid and
that guy is
React.
so passionate. Holy shit.
And he's so knowledgeable. I then asked him to send me an article who apparently he wrote. It turned out that he wrote that article about the history of hooks. I perceived hooks as something that appeared in React in 2019, but actually it was exactly. This pattern existed since 2010, and actually you can backtrack it in other languages even further than that. Like in JavaScript, it was Knockout.js that has this sort of thing that was hooks-like sort of.
Ryan has an interesting. So there are some developers who are very well intentioned and very knowledgeable, but they're very self-focused. And I think Ryan has genuine intention to want to share, but he ends up plugging his own stuff too much. And people
What do you mean?
He plugs Solid.js a lot, and sometimes like people don't want to learn about Solid.js. They're like, here's this guy talking about Solid.js, and I mentioned again. I'm just
so there is a limit. What should be the ratio between plugging your own stuff?
I don't know.
Why
I just look like So hang on. So I want to let me finish my thought, which is basically I think that you should try to help others before you serve yourself, right? Like give, take. Give. No, it's not take. It's like ask, right? Give.
5 for one take.
Something like that, right? Like Gary Vee has like jab, right hook, something like that, right? Whatever it is, at least build that relationship by like offering something of value to the other person, and then they'll be like, okay, I'll check out your thing now, right? Like instead of like constantly like here's my Medium article, here's my library. Other people exist, and like promote them or like help them, and then they'll in return they'll be interested in you. Not a shocking concept.
Yeah, I see your point. So it's not really bad. It's just something that you see that he could do better to promote himself by.
Yeah, I guess I always like. There's another guy as well, who's one of the maintainers of Webpack, and he's very smart, but like he has trouble getting people to notice the stuff that he does, basically because he doesn't seem to give back, in caring about what they do. So yeah.
Good point.
I think one of the ways I think it's Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's just like a rule of human nature. So it's, even though it's like 70 years old, it's still relevant. One of his quotes is that to be interesting, be interested in other people, be interested in what they do, what their priorities are, what their personal job, whatever they share online, they're happy to engage with, right? And so it's like, hey, like, I'm really going through something in my job. And it's like, oh no, okay, tell me more about that. And like, just be genuinely interested in what's going on in their lives. And like, if you're not, and don't fake it, right? Like if you're not, then that's fine. But like, when you do, like, engage in the story, help out, and they'll start to care about you as well. Like, it's just a fundamental like reciprocity principle that just always works in human connections.
But then something that you said is very important, that you need to really be genuinely interested. You can't force it. You cannot make yourself be interested in other people. It's just, and I think the core lesson here is just to really know what you like. And we can go back to the beginning of our conversation where you said to create material targeted to people who you admire and aspire. And then still you first need to know what do you like personally, what are you interested in, instead of chasing the likes that are, of course, is a dopamine kick. And everyone likes it, but there is some deeper liking that needs to be found, right?
Yeah.
There is one question that I would like to answer before we finish. It's the first question that we got today, is like, what is a grifter? And maybe I was a bit too harsh and I've like overemphasized it, but would you like to, is it really called grifting, or is my English bad? I think I've heard it a couple of times. It is. So I'm not wrong.
First of all, if you're not in this world, don't feel bad. It's a term that I think it's popular in like sort of the very extreme liberal parts of the US, and they just expect everyone to know it, right? And it's just not true.
Well, you see, I kind of guessed it. What does it mean contextually?
So I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about this, so I don't have a good definition, but I'll try for you. And so grifting is a negative connotation. It's a label for someone who's trying to get by not doing very much and trying to I guess profit off of other people's work. That's grift in a nutshell. So a grifter is someone who just does that constantly, right? And that's the only thing that they do. Essentially, someone who doesn't have any intrinsic value themselves, and just profits off of other people. And to be fair, there are a lot of those in the US, and that are sometimes in. I see them a lot. when I was very young, I was involved in charity work in Africa. And oh my God, there's so much grift in Africa. Like when you give money to those charities, please double check where your money's going, because a lot of it is just going to people who are already pretty rich, and they're just taking it and acting like they're angels. They're not angels. But in tech, it often is people like that list of people. Like here is the top 7 libraries of JavaScript. They did not contribute to any of the libraries. They didn't even use it, but they're just doing it for the likes, and that's a form of grift.
The thing is, I think that people. So thing is that people even ask me about the VS Code extensions that I use, but problem is that I don't really use any except for Vim and Jest 2 extensions. That's it. And most of the extensions that you will find, they might make you more effective, but that's not the effectiveness that you should strive for anyway. Usually they save few minutes. They don't really matter in a big picture.
Oh, what's more amazing. That's a hot take. That's great.
What do you mean?
That's great. So you have a unpopular opinion, as they call it, and you should just try to share that, because I think that's something that will get people's attention, and you strongly believe in it.
Is it unpopular? Wait a second. It is an unpopular opinion, you think?
Oh yeah. VS Code is like 50-something% of the developer market, man, and all of them use extensions. So the fact that you use something else is something interesting, and you can say like, you can have like this. I don't know like the YouTuber terminology, because I'm not a big YouTuber, but you can go like something in your thumbnail and go like, VS Code is overrated. Here's why, and then you can
VS Code extensions are overrated. Yeah,
but you really believe in it. That's great.
Yeah, I truly believe. I don't think it really matters. I think it doesn't.
Exactly.
Even more than that, actually, my work setup is very similar to my streaming setup, and it has everything turned off. Auto completion, whatever, because I'm just lazy. Well, honestly, I don't like switching back and forth between two sets up. It's easier for me to get used to one without any sort of hints, and then your brain does it automatically at some point. That's it.
All right. I don't agree, but all right, good for you. Hey, whatever works, man. The beauty of code is like, you can code your way, I can code my way. As long as the code runs, like I can work with you. It's fine.
Yeah, that is true. Even though naturally we tend to be very defensive about the tools that we use, opinions, and whatever.
Yeah, it is. This is a side tangent, but there's an interesting thread I think on Hacker News a few days ago, where it's like, okay, code is a very interesting like intermediate representation, because at the end of the day, every developer has their own like unique little IDE setups, and they view code differently, right? But how come when it comes to the web, we just view the final product? Like, I have to see the CSS, and I have to see the typography and whatever choices that you made, and I don't have a say in it. Like, what would it be like to have an IDE for the web? Right? That'd be pretty cool. I'm just sharing that interesting thought.
That's an interesting thought.
There's so much personalization.
Yeah, and I have seen different thought in the same direction, that the code is not only the tool or a scaffold to create a product that you will serve, but it is also a product on its own, because when you use it with your colleagues, they're also consumers, and your code has consumer qualities itself, not as a scaffold or a blueprint. One thing that I've noticed is that at some point I started like when you work with people for several months, you might start sensing who wrote specific line of code even without looking at Git blame. Everyone has different style, and you see, okay, this pattern is from this person and whatnot. But also I think it emphasizes the importance of clarity, which I put on top of everything when I write my code. Because if it's clear, you can easily fix it. It's kind of unrelated to all the previous discussion, but I think it's related to what you were saying about the code being its own sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a tangent, but I like the See, this is what a casual conversation where we're both passionate about programming, and that's what it happens. If we're here to like make like, are you a grifter content? We'd be a lot more focused. But I think this is how real conversations work.
Exactly. This is why I like Twitter Spaces, and I don't really like Twitter. That's the thing.
That's fine.
Really, it's the same that happens on Twitter Spaces. You talk to a person, you're genuine. That's it. With tweets, no idea what to do.
Yeah, it's a mix of like public broadcasting, a bit of a meme and joke platform, and then some like actual education going on. Sometimes people teach really important stuff, and like, for example, I follow what's his name, Adi Osmani. Adi Osmani is the engineering manager for Chrome, and he only tweets Chrome updates. So he's the Chrome update Twitter account, and I follow that, and I learn about Chrome from him. That's great. That's fine. He's already given up on like sharing too much personal stuff. I think because he's there's a cost to that, which is people think that they know everything about you and they have opinions about how you should live your life, and sometimes you need to just turn it off.
I can imagine. Yeah. Well, that's really all that I wanted to discuss. If you have anything else that you'd like to discuss.
No, great. I this is an unusual chat for me. Usually I'm talking about like the basics of learning in public. So actually you gave me a chance to really go deep on this sort of grifting and like
thank you so much. I was really interesting.
Yeah. I'm really glad. I'm sorry I made fun of you, but like I think you agree it was pretty funny anyway.
It kind of was. What's really sucks there is that I was exposed as a grifter, and among them I was like a loser with one like.
It didn't even work.
Yeah,
I think for what it worked,
decent there.
No. Okay, here's the way I spin it positively, right? It didn't work because you don't have a brand for grifting. Like the people who follow you don't follow you for that. So they don't want to encourage you, so they don't like it, so the people who've been doing it for a while, they build up an audience of like people who only do that, and that's what they want.
It's very hard to then to pivot and change your direction when you get already a lot of engagement, a lot of support, and a lot of people who like your content. That is that,
and then you get the Siraj Raval problem. So I have a post on this called the Meta Creator Ceiling. Just Google Meta Creator Ceiling, where basically I say like, if you're smart and ambitious, you end up wanting to win more than you want to solve problems. So winning to you seems like you have no direction in life. You're like, okay, winning, like, oh, let's make number go up. That's winning to me. Try to have a deeper definition of winning for you, because you have a limited number of years in life. Like, try to work on something more substantial than just numbers on the screen. So the line that I end with is: assume that you will be successful at whatever you do. Are you playing a game that you want to win? Right? Assume that you're going to win. Are you playing a game that you want to win? That's my line.
I actually read this article, and I really like the points of it.
Yeah. So whatever it is, and it's not for me to tell you what you want to play or what you want to win at life in. There's another article by Clay Christensen called "How Will You Measure Your Life When You Look Back After like 50, 60 years? What will you be proud of?" Right. It's probably not the grifting tweets. That's all.
Yeah. Good point. Well, thank you so much for joining the stream. It was very fruitful discussion.
Yeah, it's probably a highlight of the day.
And about the tweet, thing is with Twitter and with tweets is that you get only a tiny little picture of what the person meant.
Yeah.
And I saw that
people have gotten upset with me. I've gotten upset with people, and then we patched it up. It's fine.
Yeah, the only reason why I didn't get upset is that I'm not really attached to this sort of thing. So I was like, Yeah, it's wrong. I also don't like it. So let's
that's another principle I have as well. Don't attach your identity to your work, because if people criticize you, they are criticizing a past version of you, right? And you always have a chance to improve.
Yeah, that's true. When I was reading your essay about learning in public, you said there that people criticize you, you agree, and you move on. I personally dislike criticizing because I honestly think that it can be done much better if the person has genuine.
Should be constructive and nice about it.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you criticize people, well, the most likely thing that will happen is that they will get defensive. This is just how we operate. You even also mentioned it that we're animals. I totally agree. We're animals by the biggest percentage.
So don't get defensive. Turn the other cheek and say like, okay, I agree with you. Can you tell me more, right? Because there are a lot of people who will never be nice to you when they criticize. They just think they're very smart, whatever, and they are very smart. They're just not very nice. If you can turn those people into your mentors, I've done that many times, and that's fantastic. You have more teachers than you know what to do with, and that's great. So it's definitely, you have to swallow your ego a bit and just go like, okay, yeah, I'm willing to listen to you. And sometimes when you show that you're willing to listen, they also back down and they become nice. So instead of telling them, hey, you should be nice before you talk to me, you just go like, hey, I'm willing to listen, and then they become nice. You know what I mean? Like, don't tell them to be nice. It's like invite them to be nice.
Good point.
Yeah. I do have to go, but thank you so much for having me. This is a really great chat. I'm gonna
thank you so much.
Watch back on this one. All right. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.